Hello, today we're going to talk about the important topic of touch in the psychedelic space. Touch can be very healing. It can also be harmful, and it's very important to know your individual client, their history, and what touch feels like for them to maintain their safety, their psychological safety and emotional safety during the experience. So never assume that you can touch the client, even in a way that seems comforting to you, without first having had a discussion with them. Always ask and always get feedback from the client. Also note, sometimes the client may not know themselves what will feel healing or helpful and what will feel unpleasant until they're allowed to experiment and actually check in with that. So the way I teach touch and conversation around touch involves coaching your client on mindfulness so that they can find out for themselves. So in this next clip, I'm going to demonstrate how to start a conversation about that, and then we'll go over some of the key points in it. Okay, so you remember we talked about how we're going to talk about touch ahead of time, right? And make sure we've had a full discussion about what you're comfortable with. Everybody's completely different. So we want to make sure that if that comes up when we're in the medicine sessions, that we've had a conversation and that you've had a chance to think about it and make sure I fully know what you're comfortable with and what you're not. And one of the things I found sometimes with talking to people about this is that we don't always know what we're comfortable with until we try it and find out. And so today is about experimenting a little so that you can really check in with yourself about what feels like safe and comfortable for you, what feels like touch that could be helpful. Do you have a sense, if we're in a medicine session, do you have a sense of what kinds of touch usually feels comforting or reassuring to you?
Not really.
So it's not, you can't, you don't know if holding hands or having someone sort of pat your back, or you don't know how that might feel.
Yeah, I'm just not sure.
Okay.
I really don't know.
So what I would suggest is that we try finding out, we have some curiosity. And the important thing here is neither of us knows, so I want to take your feedback about what you know. So I'm going to have you close your eyes.
Okay.
All right? And just check in with yourself. And notice anything that shows up all by itself in your body, in your thoughts or your feelings. Once your client understands how to use mindfulness, both them and you will be assured that whatever reactions they're having to different kinds of touch are authentically coming from them, and that it's something they're able to communicate to you. So in this next clip, we're going to demonstrate the next part of the conversation. This involves explaining to the client that neither you nor they know what to expect once they're in the altered state about what will feel okay to them or not. And therefore, it's going to be important for them to be able to check in with themselves and for them to be able to say no or reject touch if that's what feels right for them, even if it's different from what was discussed ahead of time. So you'll see that being discussed in this next clip. Another key concept to track for in this clip is that when demonstrating or experimenting with touch with your client, make sure you check in on 3 different parameters. Location, where on the body the touch is occurring. Pressure, how hard you are pressing, or was it a light touch. And duration, meaning are you briefly giving a reassuring touch and then removing your hand, or are you keeping that touch maintained? These are 3 different components that might feel quite different to the client, and you need to give them the opportunity to check in on all 3 of these and say whether they like or dislike each of those 3 components. Okay, Sandy, let's talk about touch the way that we agreed that we would do, knowing that it's going to be important that we fully talked about this before we're actually in the medicine session. As I know that we've talked about it, not knowing what to expect when you're in an altered state and that may feel a bit vulnerable. Let's make sure that we've had a thorough conversation around what types of touch you feel comfortable with. And then let's talk about what may happen if, when you're in an altered state, you feel differently. Right? Because neither of us knows how you'll feel about it then, and we want to make sure we honor what's healthy and safe for you going into talking about it ahead of time and also when we're in the session. Do you have any ideas just right now what types of touch feel comforting or reassuring to you?
I think sometimes if people just, kind of gently reach out and touch, like
maybe it's like a touch on the arm or...
sometimes that feels good. I don't know what it would be like in a medicine session. I don't know because I haven't done that way, but there are times when it's certainly comforting.
Let's start by checking in with what happens in your body and your emotions, all by itself, when we experiment with different types of touch right now while we're in the preparation phase. And the important thing will be for both of us to find out based on what naturally shows up for you. Sometimes people are surprised that, how they do react when they really check in with themselves deeply. So it's really important that you don't feel like you have to allow something you're not comfortable with or say what you think that I want to hear or something that maybe normally would be a normal gesture, but it just doesn't feel right to you and you feel like that's a strange thing to say. So what I want to really help you understand today is that the most important thing about is to be authentic to what's really happening with you. And when you're in the medicine session, that will be also true. So if it doesn't feel right to you in that moment, we want to make sure that you have a way of understanding that and communicating that and also feeling like it's okay to do that. So let's first start with you learning and then sharing with me how different types of touch feel to you, if that's okay with you. Okay. Why don't we start by having you close your eyes and just check in with yourself, what you're feeling in your body and your emotions, what's happening all by itself. And then I'll have you notice what you feel, if anything. If you feel me touch you here on the upper arm like this. That feels okay.
That feels good.
That feels okay? All right. So how's the pressure, like this, or what if I like this?
That does not feel
like kind of more reassuring. That's a little
not just like kind of gentle, like
it's more like this.
Okay. Yeah.
Now, does it feel comforting to you if I just do that kind of briefly and then let go, just let you know I'm there? Or how does that feel different for me, kind of leaving my hand here while we're talking, sort of keeping that touch present?
I think I like it when you keep it there. It feels like I can kind of get used to it.
Okay, so this amount of pressure and just holding there while we're talking, that feels okay. Right. This next clip will demonstrate the important concept of teaching the client that it is okay to say no, both during the preparation conversation you're currently having, as well as in the future medicine session that you will be participating in when the client will be in an altered state.
Now I'm kind of like, I just have this like, well, what would we do if I didn't want that anymore? How would that be?
Right, like that's a long time to just hold the connection that you don't know what to expect when you're actually in the altered state.
Right.
Okay. Well, that's a good point. Why don't we try figuring out a simple way that you can say no? It's important to talk about it and even practice it because one of the best things to do for yourself when you're in an altered state is be really authentic to what's happening for you. So if a touch like this feels comforting, and that's something that you want. That may be completely true, and maybe that's what we'll do. But that might shift, and if that shifts at some point and you don't feel like it's okay, it's not fair to expect you to verbalize that or feel self-conscious about it or feel like you have to say that, right? We want you to be able to stay in your experience. So let's figure out what feels natural to you as a way that you could signal me that you want to disconnect the touch. Okay? So I'll just have you drop back in, just start back over like we were doing before, and check in with yourself.
Okay.
And just see how that feels.
It feels good.
So what would feel okay to you as a way of like saying no? Or shifting that content.
Okay. You know, maybe I was just gonna
like shrug with a
finish
shrug.
it off, kinda.
Yeah. Okay. So let's try that and see if that would work simply for you. Let's say that we had a tentative agreement, and we'll certainly talk more about this as we get closer, that if you're feeling emotional or feeling like you'd like some support during the session, if you ask for support, that I'll put my hand here and say I'm here, and we'll talk and we'll connect that way. And if you decide that you don't want that anymore, show me that motion again. Okay. So it's just a really easy, quick move. You don't have to explain anything or say anything, and I'll understand that that's okay. Let's try what that would feel like if I'm offering you support that you don't really want in that moment. Like say I perceive that you're dealing with something emotional, and I do this, and you immediately, that's not what you want. Would you feel like that's just okay? And then we'll just connect and we'll just keep talking verbally. Many clients will feel uncomfortable saying no or rejecting touch from you as the therapist. It's important to anticipate that they may be feeling that way, even if they don't express it. The following clip is an example of how to have that discussion.
I mean, would that feel weird to you?
Lots of people worry about that. Yeah. But we want to honor the fact that we're not in a normal sort of social exchange. And it's really important that you honor what your body needs based on your own history and what feels safe to your body and to you. We don't want to push against anything that doesn't feel safe or reassuring when you're in an altered state. We want to make sure that you have the ability to be track what you need and not. I feel better if you're able to say no to me. Like if you're able to say no, I know that you're really checking in with your actual self and that you're doing what's showing up really for you. You're not sort of trying to say what you think I want or what you think that I would like, right? So it's very much about checking in what is really, really showing up for you. And you may not know what that is yet ahead of time, and neither of us does. So we want to make sure we have a language both ways and that you feel fine and that it's valid to say no. And saying no might be the right thing for what you're working through in that moment. In the clips so far, we've demonstrated a patient who's comfortable with some degree of touch on the upper arm. In the next clip, I'd like to show you an example of another common scenario. Some clients will not feel comfortable with the first types of touch presented, and it's important that they check in with themselves and are able to understand that for themselves and communicate it to you. So here's how to proceed in moving or changing the type of touch to help co-discover with your client what may actually feel comfortable to them. So go ahead and check in with yourself and close your eyes and check in with what's happening in your body and in your feelings and thoughts all by themselves. And let's just take a moment to notice what you feel with my hand here on the upper arm, like what that feels like.
Okay, feels, I don't know, a little awkward.
There's something about this awkward. Okay. Let's have some curiosity about trying some different kinds of touch then. Is that okay? Okay. So I'm going to do the same thing, maybe lower down in your arm here.
Okay.
And even though these seem like very similar things, let's just have some curiosity about it and see how you feel.
Okay.
So go ahead and drop in, check in with yourself.
Okay.
I'm going to put my hand here if that's okay, and just see how that feels.
Okay. That feels better. I like that. That's nice.
Does it feel better with a little more pressure like this, or a little bit
More like kind of just a resting.
Just like this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then how does it feel if I just kind of give you a quick touch and hold, say I'm here, and we just let go again. A quick reassurance. Does that feel different, or
that feels super different? Yeah, I think I kind of like the consistency.
Okay.
So in summary, now that we've talked about touch in various ways, we've talked about the role of mindfulness in allowing the answers to come from the client. We've talked about checking in on parameters of location on the body, pressure, and duration, and allowing the client to develop a nonverbal language that simply allows them to say no or reject touch without them feeling self-conscious. We've also talked about the fact that neither the client nor the therapist can really anticipate what the client will want when they are actually in the altered state in a psychedelic session. So it is incredibly important to develop this common language and this contract, so to speak, about what is acceptable or not to the client. Given that, I'm often asked the frequently asked question of what happens when in a psychedelic session the client changes their mind and asks for a kind of touch that they previously said they did not want. This can understandably be a challenging situation for a therapist to navigate. However, my response to that is that your obligation is to always honor the agreement you made with the client when they were in the sober state and the preparation phase. This goes a long ways to maintaining the trust in the relationship. In the event that the client asks for a different kind of touch than they thought that they would want when they are under the influence of the medicine, the appropriate thing to do is to use the integration session following that to explore that and discuss whether the contract around touch should be renegotiated. As always, ongoing conversations between you and the client are constant renegotiations with what the client is discovering and understanding about themselves as they go, and this is no exception. So thank you, and I hope this video has been helpful. I would like to reemphasize the importance of this topic and the degree to which safety in the field of psychedelic medicine depends on us doing this well. We'll see you in the next video.